Warm welcome to Ursa Medica, the medical astrology channel. My name is Dr. Rahul Kamath, and I have a special interest in medical astrology. I am an allopathic doctor with additionally a Jyotish Visharad kind of qualification. So, once again, welcome to my channel. And today is a very special edition because we are going to be having an interview today of a famous astrologer, Mr. James Braha. Mr. Braha, James Braha really needs no introduction to the serious astrology student. He has written several iconic books of Vedic astrology. He has been practicing astrology for more than 4 decades now, and his latest book is the Brahasutras, which you can see on the right side of the screen. And this his first book, which really introduced Hindu astrology to the Western world, was the book on the left, which you see here, Ancient Hindu Astrology for the Modern Western Astrologer. So it's a great pleasure to have James Braha here with us on this channel. So let's start.
Hello,
Welcome, James. Hello.
how are you?
I'm fine, James. Nice to see you.
Same here.
You've been running I think, having a busy schedule.
Yes,
Yes.
it's been the last year, especially because of my book,
Yes.
been especially busy.
I see the book is occupying a pride of place behind you, behind your head on the shelf.
Yeah, I do that for the videos. That's why.
And this is my copy of the book.
Yeah. Oh, nice. Now,
I've just-
where did you get it from?
I got it from Amazon.com, and I mean, I was a little skeptical whether it would actually land home on time, but it did come on time. It was supposed to be delivered on the 6th of July. So, I mean, so
When did you get it?
from Amazon.com. Amazon.
No, when? Oh,
6th of July.
Just
From
2 days. Amazon India. From Amazon India.
From Amazon India, yes.
What did it cost? It must have been expensive there.
Yeah, quite expensive actually. I think about 2,500 rupees or so. So
you know, I think I have some distributor called Publish Drive, and Publish Drive. Let me see something. Publish Drive.
Okay.
They sell books. They sell my books from Barnes and Noble, Apple Books, and Google Play.
Okay.
But I don't know if they are. I know they're ebooks.
Okay.
Baker and Taylor is definitely ebooks. Google Play is ebooks, but I think one of them might have a hard copy. I don't know.
Okay. I'll check it out. It's Published Drive, is it?
Well, yeah, but you would go to Barnes and Noble,
Okay.
Google Play,
Okay.
and Google Play, Apple Books.
Okay, got that.
Apple Books might be the one that should sell it as a book. I just don't know. I'm so bad. So bad with the promotion. I just hate it.
Yes. So for the benefit of the viewers of this channel today, let me just first welcome the audience to this special edition of Ursa Medica, the dedicated medical astrology channel. And usually I do not show my face on the channel because I prefer to do the case studies without showing my face. But today,
no. You know what? People want to see your face.
All right.
People want to see your face. They don't want to look at a screen.
That's really words of experience, truly. And today is a special edition because we have here with us James Braha, for the Jyotish enthusiast or the Jyotish student, as well as the astrology, advanced astrology practitioner. James Braha actually needs no introduction, but truly I need to introduce you formally. So, welcome to this channel, James, and to this show. And what really James, I think is very notable about James is that he is one of those people who have been instrumental in actually creating a kind of a plausible and a practical bridge between Western astrology. I believe you started your journey with Western astrology, James.
Yeah.
And then coming to India, getting introduced to Jyotish under the guidance of some masters, and then really bringing Jyotish as Hindu astrology to the Western world. So I think that's a huge kind of a, I would say, a pioneering work, probably done 30-40 years ago. And I believe your first book was Ancient Hindu Astrology for the Modern Western Astrologer.
Yeah, which
So,
I updated.
Okay.
It says revised and expanded.
That's great.
I spent a year updating it, so it's a completely different book from 1985.
Yes, yeah, truly. So, and now your latest book, of course, is the Brahasutras, and in all 7 books. And truly, I mean, the last 2 days since I got the book, I have been kind of going through the book, and what really strikes me is it's very engaging, very personalized. It is not on a high moral horse of somebody who's practicing Jyotish for 40 years now. It's truly workable. It kind of demystifies. It's a kind of a good guidance for astrologers, for Jyotish practitioners like me, and I'm sure for so many of us who will be listening to you today. And I think it's very aptly titled "Insights from a Lifetime of Astrology." Truly, and I must say also, James, that the way you write is so personalized. You share from your life, so thanks for that, really.
Yeah.
And then I almost feel that I have met Vashti, your wife, and Julian, your son, also indirectly through your writings.
Everybody, hold on one second. This is the sutras, but
Yes.
I am now getting emails from people because in the acknowledgements, her picture is there.
That's right. I saw that.
Her picture is there because she had a very big influence on this book. I've been writing books for 30 years, 40 years, and I always read to her what I've written, and she makes comments. And I had a Brigu reading in 1996, and it said that my second wife would be an astrologer. She's not a she doesn't do it professionally, but I have to tell you that no matter how long you practice this, you are always going to find horoscopes that are baffling.
Correct.
Very, very confusing, because some charts are just massively confusing. And when that happens, I look at it, I study it, I look at the Hindu chart, I look at the Western chart, and finally, if it's still confusing, I put it in front of her. I say, tell me, what's going on here?
Okay.
And I get good information from her. And now I'm getting emails, and they say whatever they want to tell me, and they say hello to your wife.
Yes.
Because of her picture, they feel they know her.
Yes. In fact, I think on this note, truly, you mentioned just now that some charts are baffling, even with so many years of studying charts. They are baffling. Sometimes you don't know where to begin, and you get conflicting signals. So
where you begin.
Correct.
Is you tell the client, this horoscope is extraordinarily confusing. I've been doing it 40 years, and this is a confusing horoscope. Right. And then they will tell you, my life is confusing. That's the starting point.
Yes. Yeah. So my question, therefore, is to begin now this question medley. How much of astrology or Jyotish do you consider art? How much science? And how much divine intervention? So,
I understand your question.
Yeah, you have to filter it from the Indian context, of the Hindu context of asking it. In the sense that what is humanly possible or humanly done and then what is probably what happens in the sense of, I mean, art, science, and this thing.
Every astrologer is different.
Okay.
Every astrologer is different. When I entered this field, I was doing Western astrology for 3 or 4 years, not professionally, but I was consumed with astrology. But I would not practice because even though I could make future predictions from a Western horoscope with transits and with progressions, the natal chart was not accurate enough for me. It was not predictive enough. And to me, that meant that something was wrong. That's the kind of astrologer I am. Most Western astrologers, they use a great deal of intuition, and the horoscope is a little bit more fluid. It's more psychological, it's more behavioral, it's more psychic, and you do get impressions psychically, there's no question about it. From the minute that I entered astrology, I had zero interest in doing anything psychic. Even though I get psychic impressions and I do follow them up, I look in the horoscope to see why am I psychically picking up on this person being a painter? Why is that coming to me? Then I start looking in the chart. But I have no interest in using the horoscope as a psychic impression. I want to do the actual, factual, technical,
Yeah, sure.
are aspecting this and aspecting that. So for me, I try to keep the horoscope very, very distinctly what is happening, good or bad, in what area. And when it's not clear, it's not clear. And that's the end of the story.
Okay. So
there is also, but there is also, there is also a process that occurs much more so after you're practicing for 10 or 20 or 30 years. What happens is that you see certain features of the horoscope saying something, then you see certain other features saying something. And after 20 or 30 years, your brain begins to see a pattern and it begins to figure out how to fit all the pieces together. But that takes a long time. But I will say this, it is a science in the sense that my greatest accuracy comes, you'll see it in the Brahasutras. In that book, I tell you, if 3 malefics aspect a house, all the areas of that house are going to be ruined. That's just technical. That's just factual. You can't get away from it. So I tend to analyze horoscopes that way. So I'm a little bit more technical. I want to know the objective reality.
So that's I mean, part of this is very obvious because in Hindu astrology, when we start with the dasha at birth, the Vimshottari dasha, it is obviously governed by the moon nakshatra at birth and the nakshatra lord. So therefore, it is precise in a sense that we know how much of the nakshatra has been elapsed and how much of the dasha has already started before birth and all that. So it is of course a science, and as you mentioned, that intuition probably plays some role in this. So if
definitely plays a role.
Yeah. So if I were to ask you to a certain, like, let's say a successful prediction is about 60-70% of science, would it be like 20% of intuition and maybe 10% of some serendipity?
That's an impossible question.
Okay.
Which astrologer are you talking to? Look, we had a very famous astrologer. He passed away a few years ago.
Okay.
He was from India. His name was Chakrapani Ulal.
Yes, I've heard of it. Yes.
Chakrapani Ulal used a great deal of psychic intuition. How do I know? Because he would make predictions of things that you couldn't possibly find in a horoscope. That means they're coming from the psychic field.
Right.
I don't do that. It's not my interest.
It's very individualized. It's very individualized. Yes.
Yeah, but look. If you have any talent and you have any sincerity, if you have talent and sincerity, there's going to be intuition coming into play no matter who you are.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, I see that.
This is a psychic field. This is not. Yes. This is an art and a science. It's both. It's not.
No, in fact,
not medicine.
No, in fact, I realized that because I mean, I have been seeing about 200 charts of medical astrology, very specific to diseases and cases. And sometimes, even before opening the chart, I know that this moon is in a Gandanta position, probably in the 12th house, probably aspected with Mars, in a difficult position. So things like that, as you can, I can relate to that. Yes. Uh, Now you spoke, I mean, of course, we speak about transits and progressions, and particularly in the Western system, I believe progressions are given a lot of importance. Uh, in our Indian system, we have the transits. Now, traditionally, transits are taught as from the moon. Traditionally, at least in the textbooks of Jyotish here, what is taught is transit from the moon. But in practice, all of us who practice here or who are now practicing for like 3-4 years, 5 years now, uh, we look at transits from the ascendant. Okay, so what is your thought process about that? I mean,
So that's a very wonderful question, and there is a sutra in the book about transits.
mhm.
So I cannot describe how critical
Mhm.
understanding this issue is. It is the essence of
Okay.
Jyotish.
Mhm.
You cannot practice Jyotish without using common sense. Common sense. You cannot just look at what is written in the books.
Correct.
And you must understand that Jyotish is an oral tradition, not a written tradition. It's an oral tradition. And because of that, one of the things that happens is that certain things are taught to students that are obvious. It is crystal clear obvious that using the ascendant for transits is far more important than using them.
Most logical, actually. Yes.
It's far more important to use the transits from the ascendant because, now you have to use common sense, because everybody born on a particular day is going to have the moon in the same sign.
Correct.
At the most, the moon might be in 2 signs, a late degree of one sign and an early degree. So that's not very specific.
Yes.
Everybody, millions of people born that day have the same transits, whereas the transits from the ascendant are 12 different signs. So you have to use both. So you have 4 possible positives. Jupiter could be in the 7th house, aspecting the ruler of the 7th house. It could be aspecting the 7th house from the moon and the ruler of the 7th house from the moon. That's a total of 4 good ones.
Mhm.
Or you could have Saturn aspecting, transiting the 3rd house, aspecting the ruler of the 3rd house, aspecting the 3rd house from the moon and the ruler of the 3rd house from the moon. So you have a possible 4 positives and 4 negatives. And if it's 3 positive and 1 negative, you can make a positive prediction, something good in that area.
Yes.
Now, you have to understand that when you, like, part of, when I revised my ancient Hindu astrology book, when I wrote that book, I was only in astrology for 5 or 6 years, and I didn't have that much experience. And so I had to take, of course, I took what my teachers taught me, but I also had to take what other books had written about certain things. And about 5-10 years later, I was very upset about the ancient Hindu astrology planets in the houses, because anytime something was in the 6th, 8th, or 12th house, it said all bad things. Why? It's obvious that when planets are in the 8th house, the person's going to be psychic and metaphysical.
Yes.
It's obvious that when planets are in the 12th house, they're going to be going toward moksha. But the books don't say that because it's so obvious. They've been taught that by everybody. So what they write about is, I want to make sure the students know that if it's in the 8th or the 12th, it's bad. So that's why I spent a year. I could have written a whole new book, but I wanted to leave for the rest of eternity, for the next 50 years. I wanted to leave a book that really explained properly. And so when you do Jyotish, you have to use your common sense. You can't, You can't just use what was written. You have to
No, in,
reason it out.
in fact, I recollect, I mean, having read some of your sutras, I believe you have a moon and Venus in the 12th house in Aries, isn't it? No?
The moon is in the 12th house.
Uh-huh.
The ascendant ruler,
Okay.
Venus, is within 2 degrees of the 12th house ruler,
Okay.
Mars,
Yes.
and it's within 3 degrees of Ketu.
Okay.
So the ascendant ruler is with the 12th and with Ketu is spiritual, and the moon is in the 12th is moksha. People think that my life was mostly about astrology. It wasn't. The essence of my life was about moksha. And I started working toward enlightenment at the age of 19 or 20. At the age of 53, I had an Advaita master come to my house for 5 weeks and give lectures. That was the essence of my life. The astrology is just a career.
Yes.
My real life was moksha.
Okay. Okay. I get that. I'm also a Taurus ascendant. So
Taurus is the best.
yeah. One more thing. I just, with respect to the transits, we have been taught Ashtak Varga, as a part of my Jyotish studies. And I have then had the opportunity to experiment with Ashtak Varga, with charts I have seen and try to correlate it with, sometimes you don't see certain predictions happening. And then you see that probably there is a reason there, that is because of the Ashtak Varga support not being there. Maybe the Samudaya Ashtak Varga for a particular bhava is completely not there. And possibly there is no bindu from the supporting planet at all there. So nothing happens. Now, my question, therefore, as a corollary to the earlier question is, Ashtak Varga speaks a lot about Kaksha and about predictive astrology in terms of the 8 Kakshas in a house and the bindus in the Kaksha. So the predictive Ashtak Varga is used a lot for predictive astrology. So let's say Saturn is transiting, say Capricorn in the first at 3 degrees Capricorn, it's transiting 3 degrees Capricorn. It is in the first Kaksha of Capricorn. And that Kaksha is always a Saturn Kaksha. Now, the natal Saturn could be anywhere else. You correlate the transit in terms of the support that the transiting planet gets in Ashtak Varga. So my question, therefore, is how important do you think is Ashtak Varga for predictive astrology based on your experiences as an astrologer? Because you have so much experience, James.
Listen, astrology is a huge practice, and you cannot use everything.
Okay, yes.
You pick and you choose. My first teacher, Santanam, every night for about 5 or 6 weeks, every night I would put horoscopes in front of him. And I said, I want to talk just about my horoscope. Let's talk about my horoscope. He said, I don't want to talk about it until I have Shadbala.
Okay.
So he mailed away to a computer program. Now remember, this was 1982. Computers were just getting started.
Yes.
It took 3 or 4 weeks for the computer company to mail back my horoscope, and by the time he got my horoscope, they had calculated it wrong.
Oh, okay.
Which, by the way, happens a lot in India when they're doing horoscopes of Americans. I don't know why, but it happens a lot. Mm-hmm. He wouldn't read my chart because he didn't have the Shadbala. I don't care about Shadbala. So different astrologers, what I'm telling you is different astrologers work differently because you can't use everything. Now, as far as Ashtaka Varga, I don't use it that much, but I will tell you this. Ignoring the entire horoscope, just ignoring the entire horoscope, you can take the Ashtaka Varga,
okay,
and look at the signs, look at the houses that have 40 points, 38 points,
yes.
Okay,
way
beyond the average. That house is going powerful. To be powerful. It's going to be powerful just because it's got many points. You can take another house that has 16 points, very low. That house is going to be a problem. but there's so many different methods that you can use. And you know what happens also is that over the decades, I used to use the Ashtaka Varga more than I do now. Now you've reminded me, and I'm going to go start looking at it again.
Yes, yes.
because look, you can't use everything. You know, you're going to have to pick and choose what you want to use and how much time you want to spend. But I find the Ashtaka Varga valuable. There's no question about that. I don't know. I don't know that I could say that. Well, I mean, I've never gotten into the Ashtaka Varga enough to say I know for sure that this person's going to have an accident because of this Ashtaka Varga. I can't say that, but I can say this. I can say this. When those houses are powerful, you're going to get good effects. And a house doesn't have to be powerful. It could be maybe you have 30 points in a house, but Jupiter may be contributing a lot of points, more than the others. Maybe Venus and Mars, they don't contribute much, but Jupiter contributes a lot of points, even though the house only has 30 points or 33, just average. But if Jupiter's giving a lot of points in the calculations, then when Jupiter transits, it's going to be good. If the house has very low points,
And my question then,
Saturn's transit's going to be bad.
okay.
And if Saturn transits a house, even if the house has high points, if Saturn's not contributing many points and it transits that house,
Okay.
it's not going to be so good.
Yeah. So one question is, supposing a house has few points, say 20 points, and there is an aspect of the fifth aspect of Jupiter, say, on that house, natal aspect.
Wait, say it slower. It has what, about 20?
It has the fifth aspect of Jupiter, the natal Jupiter on that house.
Yeah.
I mean, it has a Jupiterian aspect on that house, but the points are less. The Sarvashtak Varga points are less. Would it kind of compensate a bit? I mean, is it like you have a house which is weak, but then you have a...
Padia, my teacher Padia said, James, astrology is not simply tea. Astrology is like chai. It's lots of spices and lots of recipes and you have to analyze them all, and you have to have a computer mind. Nobody can give you an answer to that question. We can say the Jupiter aspect is good, the low points are bad, and you take it into consideration.
Yeah, and one takes it into the whole brew of the chai, as you say.
One positive, one negative. Look, in the book, I have a date that I analyze. I think it's February 3rd, 1962, or something like that. In the book, all the planets except for Rahu, and not including the outer planets, all the planets are in Capricorn.
Right.
Except for the North Node Rahu, which is in Cancer. That's it. All the planets in one sign. And I analyze that horoscope. I spend 10 pages showing you how to get lots of information, even though all the planets are in one place. And basically, you just have to go point by point by point. How many positives, how many negatives, how many positives on this planet, how many negatives on that planet.
Got
and
that.
Then you draw your conclusions.
Now, I'm kind of veering the talk now a little bit towards health and medical astrology. Now, there are times when, as an astrologer, one has to predict one is asked to predict the time of death sometimes. Let's say someone is... So
I'm never going to do that.
Okay.
First of all, it's too difficult. Most astrologers will get it wrong.
Yes.
That's first of all. If, however, you're looking at a horoscope and you see the likelihood of death because it's very obvious, that's a different story. If you have Moon Mars in the 8th and the person comes to Moon Dasha Mars Bhukti, if you have Jupiter Dasha Saturn and they're both in the 8th, that's a problem. Then I warn them to get yagyas. But most astrologers trying to predict the time of death, they're not going to get it right anyway.
So my question was, the second part of the question was that there are specialized dashas, which, so I use the Vinshottari and I use the yogini as well, which helps to correlate. You see the subtle influences in yogini, which you don't see in Vinchottari, because the yogini is shorter and everything. Now there are other dashas like Shula dashas and Kala Chakra dashas, which are specific for death.
There's 40 dasha systems.
No. So my question is, what is your opinion about using specialized dashas to predict such things like death, for example? I mean, or at least know as an astrologer, not to talk about it, but at least know about it.
Well, the thing is, this has nothing to do with the James Braha opinion. It has only to do with when you use them, do they work? That's all. Does it work?
Have you tried them? Have you tried them?
Here's an example.
Yeah.
In 1993, K.N. Rao came to America, I think Sedona, and he gave a workshop on Jaimini, Charadasha.
Okay.
And so I started using the Jaimini system. I did not find it to be nearly as good as the Vimshotri Dasha.
Okay.
But I'm not an expert in Jaimini. I'm not an expert, but from the little that I got, occasionally it would be very accurate. My own marriage was crystal clear from the Jaimini system, but not from the Vimshotri. After about 5 years, one of the things that I found was that the padas,
Mm-hmm.
so if the ascendant was, like in my case, the ascendant is Taurus, the ruler of Taurus is Venus. Venus is in the 4th house. Mm-hmm. So I count 4 houses from Venus and I get to Scorpio, and Scorpio becomes a 1st house pada.
Aruda of the.
I loved this. This made me feel like I was a great code breaker. It was wonderful. And it had one problem. It never worked.
Oh.
It never worked.
Uh-huh.
So after about 5 years, this is how long it takes astrologers, and this is only the astrologers that are skeptical. Many astrologers don't care. This is what they were taught. This must work. Well, I don't work that way. If it doesn't work, then I don't use it. So about 5 years after using this, I don't know, 3 years, 4 years, I don't remember, but it wasn't too long. I think I emailed Gary Gomes, because Gary Gomes specializes in Charadasha.
Oh, okay.
And I said, what is the deal? These things don't work. And he says, oh, the padas are the most controversial aspect of the Jaimini system. I said, well, that makes sense. So asking me my opinion, it doesn't really, it's more a question of, when you use that system, does it produce accurate results? That's all that matters.
Okay.
Yeah. And I have not actually worked with many of the Dasha systems. I have enough with the Vimshotri. I have enough with the Hindu transits. Then I have the Western transits and progressions. I have enough to deal with. After a while, you get overloaded.
That's correct. I mean, yes. I just now this question comes from my background as a medical doctor. So I'm an allopathic medical doctor by education and a medical educator, which in my earlier avatar of my career. Mm-hmm. Now my question is, what I think is this: today in medicine, in the medical fraternity, it is not really possible. If a child is born, it's not possible to say what diseases the child is likely to have in the future. No technology in the world, no medical textbook in the world can predict or can even prognosticate what's going to happen to
astrologers. They're doctors.
Yes. Now my question is, I see the charts that I'm seeing. I am using some techniques. I'm working on them. I'm experimenting with a lot of techniques in medical astrology to localize disease, for example, accurately localize disease using D3 charts and things like that. And I'm getting there. I'm not yet fully accurate, but I'm kind of getting there. I see some results. My question is, this is more of a thought experiment, really. This is not so much of what you have done necessarily, but more like, as a senior astrologer, and you've seen the progress of this discipline over the last 30-40 years, how it has grown. Going ahead, do you think that in the future it might be possible to predict future illnesses to a degree of accuracy from the natal chart?
You could do that now. You don't need the future. When I look at a horoscope, if Jupiter is afflicted, you have problems with the liver, gallbladder, spleen, and allergies. If Mercury is afflicted, you have problems with the lungs, intestines, nervous system.
No. That I do understand. But the thing is, when I'm looking at when we say Jupiter afflicted and the liver, the pathophysiology of hepatitis is different. The pathophysiology of cirrhosis of liver is different. The pathophysiology of fatty liver is different. And these processes also. So the thing is that disease process is also an area of research as far as I am concerned, because what exactly would be the biochemical or the molecular changes which would begin under what grahas? For example, that's because today, just to say that a child is going to have problems related to Jupiter in the future or related to Venus, it could be Venus problems, could be, for example, kidney diseases, it could be endocrine disorders, it could be it could be even gastrointestinal problems, it could be a whole lot of things, and one is not able to hone it down to a specific thing. So my personal interest in medical astrology in the future for me is to do a research in this area to such a level that tomorrow somebody can come and one could actually tell them that, look here, this is what is possible to a great level of accuracy. That was what
I had a guru when I was in my 20s, and he said, when it comes to the relative existence, material existence, he said, there is no limitation as to what can be discovered and created. There is no limitation. So the answer to your question is absolutely. Look,
okay.
If you if you get an astrologer who just wants to focus on health, they will be able to do that.
Got it.
They will be able to, like, when you read my books, when you read the more recent ones, the revised ancient Hindu or the Brahasutras, you're going to find that I have always approached astrology from the point of view of the whole horoscope, everything, looking at it as a whole. So that's what I did for 40 years, and that's what I specialize in. And when you read my recent books, you'll see, oh, wow, he's looking at the horoscope to see the person's life, not just the little intricate, this prediction and that prediction, but looking at the person's life as a whole. What is the purpose of their life? What is, seeing the whole picture? That's because that was my interest. Now, somebody else may not have that interest of seeing the person's life as a whole. They may want to predict, certain, they may want to make predictions that are going to be very flashy and show the world how great astrology is. But I never got a horoscope reading from anybody where they looked at my life as a whole and put it in a context and said, this is what your life is for the 70 or 80 or 60 years. This is what your life, how it looks as a whole. So that's my ability. So your ability is medical. And if you focus on medical, you might miss the whole of the person. You might miss aspects of relationships, but you will find out exactly what's going to happen medically, because there is no end to how evolution just keeps going further and further and greater and greater. And so it's a matter of where you focus your consciousness as to what so if you want to do that, and then you do that, and then you spread it to the other astrologers and make it easy for them.
No, in fact, I have been privileged that I am teaching now the medical astrology course of the Visharad semester in the ICAS, Indian Council of Astrological Sciences, in India. I am one of the faculties for medical astrology now. So I'm teaching the course, and I have been fortunate to have been indirectly, I call it a blessing, blessed by Dr. K.S. Charak. K.S. Charak is
Dr. Charak. I met Dr. Charak 30 years ago. He is the medical, he's the medical man of astrology.
I want to take it. I mean, with humility and with a lot of salutations to his feet, and also the feet of the divine. I want to actually take it beyond the books that he has written. I mean, I have.
You must.
Yes.
Each astrologer must go beyond. I have put my books out so that people will read that, and then they can take what I've taught and go way beyond what I taught. Yes. And you need to go beyond Dr. Charak, and your students need to go beyond you. That's the way astrology should be practiced, not, oh, the scriptures said this and we'll stay there. The scriptures were written thousands of years ago. Some of it works, some of it doesn't.
No, in fact, this is a very good point, James. Actually, I would like to share a little bit. Now, interestingly, the aspect of karakas, the significators of in medical astrology. Now, that's a very, very exciting area to think about and to work on, because these karakas were never described in the scriptures. Okay, we had concepts of disease were based on Ayurvedic constructs. So the karakas have been described in the scriptures from the Ayurvedic perspective. While we have so many different karakas of medical astrology, there is one Dr. Cornell who has who practiced medical astrology in the US, and he's written a book called Cornell's Encyclopedia of Medical Astrology. So the whole business of getting the right karakas, combining them, and I also want to talk about specifically, you mentioned about the outer planets, and I see so much relevance of Neptune and Uranus in health and disease, particularly so much relevance. Neptune is also called Varuna in ancient Indian this thing. So he's been picturized as an asura or a demon in a way, overlord of all, more like a Thanos kind of a perspective in the Vedic deity pantheon. So could you share some ideas about your experiences about Neptune in the chart, about Uranus in the chart, anything random that comes to your mind?
Well, Neptune is anesthesia.
Okay.
Neptune is anesthesia. Mm-hmm. Neptune is going to be illnesses that are very difficult to diagnose. Mm-hmm. Neptune is illusion, deception, things that cannot be seen. So if somebody calls me with a prashna, with a question, and I do a prashna, mm-hmm. and I see Neptune on the ascendant, then I know this could be, first of all, it's going to be something very difficult to diagnose. It's hidden. Mm. Second of all, it can be emotional stress causing it. Third, it can be amoeba, like you eat a bad food and the amoebas, viruses, amoebas, things like that. Neptune is not going to be like a throat problem or a thyroid problem or a lung problem. Neptune is going to be amoebas. You ate some bad food, spoiled food, poisons, and it's going to be very hard to diagnose them. Okay. So I mean, that's pretty much how I see Neptune. Uranus is going to be spasms, the body spasms.
Electrical activity as well. Yes, that's right.
Electrical activity. You get a leg, your muscle tightens up. That's going to be Uranus. I don't know too much about the Uranus in terms of health, other than that it's something that may come on suddenly and end very suddenly. And
actually, Uranus is connected with the pituitary gland, in terms of what the karakas, in terms of
yeah.
And Neptune is also connected with the pineal gland. the pineal gland. So
the Neptune is very psychic. The pineal gland is connected to the psychic.
The
it's the unseen, it's the metaphysical, it's the spiritual realm, etc.
It's the Sahasrara chakra, the lotus chakra, the 1,000-petal lotus. So that corresponds with the Indian thing.
Neptune also causes leaking. Like if Neptune hits the 4th house, I always say, watch out, your house is going to leak. Oil leak, gas leak, etc. And so it's the same thing. You could have a Neptune issue and it's in Virgo and something is leaking from the intestines. You know, it's
interestingly, I did a prashna for 10:40 a.m. EST. I mean, interestingly, since we want to start at 10:40 a.m., I did a prashna kundali, and interestingly, I find that Venus is in the 5th house in Taurus. It's a Capricorn ascendant, Venus in the 5th house. So it correlates well with the media aspect of this thing. We are on YouTube and we are.
Where is Saturn?
Saturn is in the 2nd house. It's still in Aquarius, although it's retrograding quickly into Capricorn any day now, but it's still in Aquarius.
Yeah.
And Jupiter is with Neptune in Pisces. Vedic Neptune is in Pisces right now. Almost 0 degrees Pisces. So it's the just at the beginning of the 4th pada of Purva Bhadrapada.
And where is Mercury?
Mercury is in Gemini with Sun in the 6th house.
So you want to talk, Mercury's in the 6th. So you want to talk medicine.
That's right. And Sun is there as well. Sun is there, yes.
Saturn being, the ascendant ruler Saturn being in the 2nd house, I would say, is that we're talking about knowledge, writing. 2nd house is writing, teaching, speaking, and knowledge.
Yes. And interestingly, James, Moon and Ketu are together in Libra in the 10th house. So we are talking about moksha, we are talking about enlightenment, and in a sense, we are talking Jyotish. So this is quite fascinating, really. I mean, just by and by.
And the moon is the ruler of the 7th house.
That's right.
Yeah. So,
that's right. That's very pertinent. Yes. Of course.
and then Pluto. Have you used Pluto in the medical?
Yes. So Pluto, I mean, in medical astrology, basically Pluto represents Yama or Hades, the god of death.
Yeah.
And in a sense, Pluto is also somewhere connected with the nakshatra Bharani, is my understanding, because the nakshatra deity of Bharani is again Yama. Yeah. In that sense. I have a close relationship with Pluto, I feel, because my Sun and Pluto are conjunct in the 5th house in Virgo.
So here's what you need to know mostly about Pluto.
Okay.
Pluto is death and rebirth. It could be death, but when Pluto hits a planet, Venus, the love life dies and gets reborn. It dies and gets reborn.
Okay.
So Pluto, what you want to look at when Pluto conjuncts a planet, Pluto is the planet of rebirth, regeneration. So no other planet can give cellular regeneration as much as Pluto. So like if I'm doing a horoscope and people say, well, all right, so I'm supposed to work on this area of my life. I need self-improvement. How do I know whether the client is able to do self-improvement and get anywhere? I look for Pluto. If Pluto is with the sun or Pluto is on the ascendant, if Pluto is very, very prominent, the person can regenerate the cellular structure. Physically, the cells can regenerate themselves.
Wow, this is amazing.
Pluto is death, but then rebirth. So, you take, like I have a dominant Pluto. Pluto is my strongest planet. I came from a family that was dysfunctional. My mother was schizophrenic. Many people in my shoes having that kind of childhood would be lost for the rest of their life. But when you have a dominant Pluto, you can fix it, you can regenerate it, you can improve it. If Pluto is not touching anything, and then the person is trying to get better, to improve, go to therapy, go to counseling, they don't get anywhere. They go to counseling, but it doesn't improve, it doesn't help. Whereas if Pluto, in my case, if you take the Western chart, Sun, Mercury, Neptune in the 6th house, which is health and self-improvement, forming a perfect sextile, which is a good aspect, from Pluto. So the planets are in the 6th house, which is self-improvement, but Pluto is aspecting all of them. So I did every self-improvement technique you could do for 30 years because I didn't want to suffer. I wanted to have a valuable life. So Pluto allows you to, I marvel at where I came from. If you knew who I was at 5 and 10 years old and 15, I was a wreck. I was a total wreck because the childhood was so bad. And yet I turned out okay because of all the self-improvement that I could do, and because Pluto allows you to regenerate. I'll tell you something. My mother also had a very strong Pluto. And I remember a psychiatrist, he called me up once, I was maybe 40, and he wanted to talk. He said, I want to talk about your mother. This is a very, very sick woman. Mentally, she's very sick. And he said, I don't know how this woman has actually managed to live her life outside of an institution. She did. She did. The reason that she could do that, as bad as her life was, she hallucinated, she had all kinds of problems. But Pluto was so strong in her chart. And I tell you what, to her credit, she used to go to therapy. Some people are crazy, they won't do anything. She would try to get better. She would try to get better. That's Pluto. So when you see Pluto in the horoscope in terms of the medical, you have to think this person has a chance to regenerate, to become stronger, to become better, to improve. But it's also the death and the rebirth.
Yeah, I can relate to that because I am 51, but I actually feel like this is my third. I have a Sun Pluto conjunction in Virgo in the 5th house, very close, almost at the same degree. And I just feel that it's literally like a third birth feeling kind of from within. It's like there are these cycles of total regeneration which can happen. I mean, I can relate to that. And interestingly, in the Prashna Kundali right now, that for 10:40 a.m. EST, Pluto is in the ascendant in Capricorn.
And we're talking about Pluto.
Yes, we are talking about Pluto. And I think that's truly the theme today. In a sense, that has been the theme of today's talk in a way so far.
And if you have Sun Pluto, you can survive almost anything. Some people would be destroyed by bad things. A person that has Sun Pluto, they can survive almost anything. Pluto is the most powerful planet. When they downgraded Pluto, I was just flabbergasted because out of all the planets, they took the one that has the most powerful effect of all and downgraded it.
You know why? That's why we call them grahas and not planets. You can downgrade a graha, you can downgrade a planet, but you can't downgrade the graha in terms of the actual meaning of the graha, that which grasps. So I think that's true. I wanted to ask you, do you use the Deshkan chart, the D3 chart in your analysis anytime?
All I use is the natal chart, and I use the Dasamsha and the Navamsha.
Yes.
And
okay.
even those, I do not use them. I do not look at the whole Dasamsha. I do not look at the whole Navamsha. I did for at least 5 or 10 years. I just didn't get accurate information. Now, when I look at the Dasamsha, I look at the 10th house ruler, where it is, and I look at the planets in the 10th house. No aspects, no other houses, That's all I look at.
10th house of the Dashamsha, or you look at the 10th house ruler of the D1 in the Dashamsha?
No. The natal chart is going to give me information about the career from the 10th house,
Yes.
Everything about it. The horoscope as a whole, the natal horoscope as a whole, is going to give me information about the career. You know, they talk about having 5 different karakas for the 10th house. This is utterly ridiculous. Saturn is the most strong karaka of the 10th house. But when they say the sun, Mercury, Jupiter, when they say all these other karakas, all they really mean is you better look at the whole chart. Okay, so you look at the whole chart, and specifically you look at the 10th house. Then you go to the Dasamsha. But first, you have to see if the Dasamsha is accurate. So you have to look at the birth time. Is the birth time on the hour? If so, it's probably an approximation. Then you have to look, is the ascendant anywhere near 3, 6, 9, 12, 15, 18? Because if the ascendant is anywhere near 3, 6, 9, 12, 15, 18, then a minute, half a minute, off the birth time ruins the Dasamsha. So first you have to make sure that that's right. Then you look at the Dasamsha. If the 10th house ruler in the Dasamsha is in the 7th house, the career can be connected to business or a marriage partner. If the ruler of the 10th house is in the 3rd house, the career is either the arts or mechanical technical. Then let's say you have Mercury in the 10th house. That means writings, teachings, communications. And if Mercury rules the 9th house and the 12th house, and it's in the 10th, then the career could be connected to foreign countries, religion, philosophy, 9th house, or it could be connected to moksha, 12th house, and there will be changes and confusion of career because it rules the 12th house, Adhisthana. That's the Dasamsha.
Okay. So I got that. I mean, basically,
now, if you have 2 or 3 planets in the 10th house of the Dasamsha, then you have problems. You're not going to know so easily what the career is. If you've got Venus and the Sun and Jupiter in the 10th house of the Dasamsha, you're going to have to really look around and look at the whole chart and see what those planets are ruling, what houses they rule.
Just one question. I mean, you are talking of the 10th house of the Dashamsha.
Yes.
What about the ascendant of the Dashamsha? Is that not very important? Since
maybe 10 or 20%, maybe 10.
Okay.
The thing is, these are questions that everybody has to find their own way.
I understand.
I have found that the 10th house of the Dasamsha and the 7th house of the Navamsha, I tell you what, I've never been able to make the horoscope for children. I've never been able to make it work.
Okay.
The 5th house, whatever it's called, I've never found it to work. So other people may use it, but many astrologers use everything and they don't care if it works or not. They just assume that it works.
I think that's right. I think that's a very valid point. I mean, truly one needs to test what is working and what is not working.
When I do horoscopes, I only use what works. And by the time I'm done talking, I tell the person, just sit back and listen. And then you can ask what you want. When I'm done talking, they go, oh my God, it was so accurate. Now, it doesn't mean that I've told them everything because I don't find everything. But what I have found is accurate. If I haven't found it, I haven't found it because I'm not going to talk about something that I don't know about. If a person asks, well, what about brothers and sisters? And if that house is completely confusing, I say, I don't know. It's not clear. I don't know. But what I do talk about, when I'm done, they go, oh my God, that was so accurate, because I only use what works. So if they ask about children and I say about children, and then they say, what about the 5th house Varga? I say, I don't use it. Why don't I use it? I've never found it to be accurate. I have brothers, I have friends, I have my own chart, my wife's chart. I look at the chart for children. It doesn't match the children.
You mean the D7 chart?
Whatever it is, yeah. I don't even use it, so I don't know what it is. What's it called? Pachanga or something? Or I
Yeah,
don't.
I mean, basically, yeah, the D7, Saptansha, they call it, yeah.
Yeah, I don't use it because I can't make it work.
No, and the problem even with the D60, I mean, Parashar gives a lot of value to D60. He says that D60 is as the same as value as D9. But then again, the problem is if the timing is not accurate, the D60.
I don't find the D9 to be anything special.
Okay.
Many people do. I tried. I did everything they said to do. I don't find it to. I don't find. But if I look at the marriage, I can use that D9 and I can make it work for the marriage. But for the other stuff, I don't find that it works. And I'll tell you this: when you use the natal chart, the Bhava chart, the Chandra Lagna, the Navamsha, that's 4 horoscopes per person. You know what? If you use 4 horoscopes per person, you can find whatever you want.
That's right.
So I don't use it. I use the natal chart. I use the Bhava chart. You cannot get accurate information without the Bhava chart. The moon chart, I use the Chandra Lagna mainly for planets opposite the moon. If you see Mars opposite the moon, that's going to be like Mars in the 7th house. If you see Jupiter, both of my spouses, the one I married at 23 to 28, and then from 1993 to now, they both had Jupiter 7 houses from the moon.
I see.
The partner was Jupiterian, was spiritual. So I find that if a planet is, if you have Mercury, I have Mercury 7 houses from the moon. Both of my wives, reading, teaching, reading, because Mercury is 7 houses from the moon. As far as the reading the entire Chandra Lagna, I don't know. To me, I have enough to look at without that. But I find that planets opposite the moon, yes. But all the planets in relation to the moon, maybe. And now I know astrologers are going to say, but I get so much information out of that. Okay, well, let's see when you're done with the horoscope. Do the clients say, oh my God, that was so accurate? Or they say, well, some of it was, some of it wasn't. Hard to know.
And interestingly, in my case, the moon lagna and the regular ascendant is the same because I have my moon in ascendant. So in that sense, so it's, you don't have to look at 2 charts. One can look at the same chart. And
yeah.
No, I mean, it's truly wonderful, James, to actually have you. And for me particularly, this session has been a wonderful mix of a lot of insights, truly, a lot of practical insights, as you said, insights which can be tempered with common sense, and also a very empirical approach to Jyotish. And so, I mean, I am enriched by this conversation.
That's what. Listen, there's 216 different sutras in the new book, the Brahasutras. If what you're interested in is the actual technical, I want the experience of what works and what doesn't work, that book is for you. If you want to look at a horoscope, look at the chart, close your eyes, have psychic impressions, that's a different way to do it.
No, I'm actually developing a toolkit of sorts, a toolbox for which will work for me and which will be as much accurate as I can get towards disease, not only the location of the disease, but also the disease process, if I may, and also the prognosis of that in the future, how it is likely to turn out in the future. So I'm sure that this will need a lot of experimentation and in the coming years. And truly great to have you. I just want to have some words from you for the new astrologers, the people who are starting their journey in astrology, and maybe some words for your contemporaries or your peers, as we come to the end of this.
Well, what I would say is, what I would say is that the most important thing is integrity. 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 You look for what you know is going to be accurate, and you tell the clients what you know is accurate. The most important words in astrology are I don't know. It's not clear. It's never going to be 100% clear. Never. And I tell you what, in the book, the Brahasutras, I say, I can hardly tell you the luck and the blessings I have had in Jyotish. My ninth house is so extraordinary that when I have wanted higher knowledge, I have always gotten it. Good, higher knowledge. But the greatest luck I have ever had was that I knew Western astrology for 5 years before going to Jyotish. Now, for 40 years, I have been advising people, learn the basics of Jyotish if that's what you're learning. Once you've got the basics, go to the Western system and pick up the basics of that. And they say, no, because I haven't mastered Jyotish. Well, let me give you a little hint. You're never going to master Jyotish. You're never going to master the Western system.
Correct.
What you do is you get the simplest, the most basic, the most accurate, and then you go to the other system and get that. Then you will have two different realms to choose from. You'll have more information, but it's very, very hard to convince people. They think, like, for example, I talk about what's called a signature. A signature is something in a horoscope that is very, very blatant and big. So if you see Saturn on the ascendant, that's a signature. It's so all-encompassing, it's going to affect the person's whole life. If Venus is right on the seventh house cusp, that's a signature telling you about their marriage. It's very basic and very big, okay? When somebody has a signature involving Uranus, Neptune, or Pluto, and you don't know Western astrology, you don't know what Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto is, you miss the most important thing about that person's life. So I'm doing a horoscope for somebody. My charts, even though I know Hindu and Western, I focus on Hindu, but I study the Western because it's going to give me certain information. But I speak mainly from the Hindu. But I said, look, before I even start this horoscope, I have to tell you Neptune is in the same degree as the ascendant. And then I will describe what that means. Without knowing what Neptune is and Neptune on the ascendant, no Hindu astrologer is ever going to get the essence of that person.
Correct. Correct. So yes.
So back to the words of wisdom, the words of advice. The words of advice are, you must have integrity. All you have is your word, your ability to speak the truth. So when you're studying astrology, speak what you know and admit what you don't know. And you'll go step by step, you'll get better and better and better. Admit when you're wrong. It took me 20, 30 years to realize that exalted Saturn's never as good as it looks. Fallen Jupiter's never as bad as it looks. It took me 30 years to find out that Mercury and Jupiter conjunct are not good, even though they're two benefics. But I had the ability to be open-minded and to finally say, I've been wrong all these years. So you have to be open-minded and you have to have integrity. And without integrity, go do some other career. If you have integrity, you'll get very far. That's the best advice I can give.
Wonderful, wonderful. James.
Sorry for the pontificating.
No. I think it's been a good session. What I will do is, I just want to now tell the audience that just on behalf of Ursa Medica, this channel, I wish James Braha a very scintillating launch and sale of this book. And I wish that the insights are truly gleaned and not only are they read, but that they get metabolized in the consciousness of people.
I will tell you now, you will have to read it over and over and over. I always say this. When I started Western astrology, I picked up Isabel Hickey's book. She wrote her book when she was 70. Okay. Which means that she had a lifetime of experience to put into that book. And when I read it, I said, oh, all I have to do is memorize this book. But I couldn't memorize it. It was just packed with information. So all you could do is read it over and over and over the years. It's the same with this book, the Brahasutras. You just have to read it over and over, because you can't absorb everything.
Thank you, James, for coming on this channel, and I hope I will meet you in the flesh sometime, maybe in the US. Okay. Somewhere, and I'm blessed and privileged to have you, and thank you once again. Friends, if you have liked what you have heard on this channel today, if this has contributed to you, if you feel that you want to write to me, please note the email on the slide in front of you. And really, thanks for watching. Please subscribe to this channel if you haven't done so already. Like it and share it to those whom you think might be benefited. Thank you so much.